Hello, players in the game of life. This is Games and Feelings, an advice show about playing games, being human, and dealing with the fact that those games involve other humans. I'm your host and question keeper, Eric Silver, and my main when I'm playing the suite of Mario Kart, Party, and general sports games is Donkey Kong, because similarly, I'm not wearing pants and I'm wearing a tie.
Hey, I'm Amanda McLaughlin, and my main is Yoshi, because I love a little lizard guy.
Yo, I am Jasper William Cartwright, and my main is also Yoshi, mostly just because I actually do a pretty badass impression of Yoshi. That's why. I quite enjoy, I've got a decent Yoshi, so, like, that's the main reason.
All right, everyone, hey, shut up. Shut up. Jasper needs to do his impression. Everyone, shut up.
Okay, you ready for this?
Please.
Yahoo!
Ooh.
That's pretty
Very
good.
good. I just watched Jasper eat an entire watermelon.
Yeah, it's impressive. I ate two, actually. It was actually two.
It really helps that you swallowed an ostrich egg whole when you did that. That was really impressive.
Yeah, my belly is the shape of an ostrich egg now. It's kind of uncomfortable, I'll be honest. I don't know where Yoshi puts it, but in a real human, it's just uncomfortable.
As Jasper is giving advice today, he will be pooping out eggs, but here's what we're all going to be doing. This show comes from the fact that a lot of person-to-person conflict pops up when we play games. Conversations about games being too hard is actually about, how people see themselves as gamers and whether or not it's worth it to put in accessibility tools, which, probably should.
It is. Yeah.
Interpersonal scraps at the table are really just about the fact that no one knows how to talk to each other. And isn't sports just a LARP with a crowd? And Jerry Jones is there. Isn't that it?
I don't know who Jerry Jones is, but I'm willing to take a stab at a commentator, maybe?
He is a very wrinkly and very evil football man in Texas.
Ah, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Wrinkly old football man. I have assimilations for that. I know what you're talking about now.
If you imagine what the final boss of capitalism is, you're envisioning it. See how these things come together? It's just like that.
Yeah. There we go. We've got synergy now. I love it.
So we have an advice show that we're going to put together here. I will be here for the majority of episodes, and we're going to be having a revolving cast of guests come through and give their advice on the various things that they're good at knowing and talking and playing about. So we have Amanda and Jasper. We're going to start it off.
Hooray!
Woo! Little does Eric know that he won't be able to remove me from these. I will pop up in every Zoom and just be like, "Hey, it's me again. I'm back. Sorry, you can't get rid of me. I'm like Yoshi Shell. You're Yoshi and I'm your shell. I'm just going to be stuck on your back and there's nothing you can do about it."
You're acting like that's a bad thing. I'm going to ride this Yoshi, jump off you and say goodbye as you go off into a pit. And then I'm going to turn back around and Jasper is respawned.
Oh yeah, I'm right here. The cloud picked me up and put me back on the track. So we're all good.
Wonderful. So we're going to start with our first segment, which is introducing why our guests are here in the first place. So Amanda, what do you feel especially qualified to give advice about?
I am a very completionist gamer. I love a sort of progression hook. I love completing a collection, completing a challenge. So most of my time is spent in farming sims and in Pokemon, where I love catching them all. And so that is, after work, I am most likely to be playing Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, or any of the Pokemon games.
And I'm only saying this because, I live with you and we're together in Life, Love, and Podcasting. The best people you've ever met on the internet in terms of any video game community happens to be the people on Reddit who you've asked to give you the Pokemon you need to catch them all.
Yeah, no, it's really cute, over sort of recent years, but also because I'm a 30-year-old woman who plays Pokemon Go and Sword and Shield and all these other games. I don't have people in my life that I can meet up with IRL to do trades like, they thought I would be doing with my connection cable and my Game Boy SP, which was my first handheld console. So instead, I have made use of the Sword and Shield trading subreddit, where there's a very extensive sort of community guideline, and it's very safe. It's very wholesome. And there's ways that you trade with people. You kind of change your display name to be an agreed upon code around what Pokemon you need and which ones you're willing to give. And then you just, in a random weekday night, within kind of 10 minutes, I'd completed my Pokedex because there was one Pokemon that my fiance had as his main and said he would trade with me, but neglected to evolve it all the way.
No,
because the final battle with Hops was too hard. And so I had to go outside the home for my my kicking flame bunny guy. But you know what? It opened up a whole new world to me, honey. So I forgive you.
I blame the switch drift. If my trainer wasn't running to the right the entire time, I would have had a much easier time. And I'm glad that the fact that Nintendo products are sometimes faulty and they don't really want to do anything about it has brought us closer. And you found a place for that to be better for you.
You know, life finds a way, Eric. Community fills the gaps, and the buggier and weirder a system, the more strangers on the internet find ways to connect to, for example, complete really difficult raids in Pokemon Go. Like I meet with strangers virtually on the internet all the time to do remote raids. It's so much fun.
Hell yes.
Love it.
All right, Jasper, what do you feel especially qualified to give advice about in terms of any types of games?
I would say generally anything that involves like an emotional connection, so whether that's like role playing or whether it be just generally like enjoying a game and getting like the most out of like the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like all of the opposites of Amanda. Like I'm so far away from a completionist. I couldn't care less about like missing all of the rooms. I'm just about like enjoying the characters, enjoying the story, the narrative. That is the fodder for me. So hopefully I can help to just improve your ability to like relax, sit back, enjoy the game, and like maybe have less stress about collecting all of the gems that are in the thing over there. And it's fine, no one cares. Other people do it. You can watch on YouTube. That's the way I approach games. So hopefully, that and roleplay, I think, will be the things that I can lend a hand on. So yeah.
Which of us has a more fun time through life? I'll leave it to you, listeners, to decide.
Yeah, it's definitely Amanda. Complete your life. Complete it all.
No, I mean, I think you can't 100% your life, but you can any percent your life, and I think you're perhaps better equipped. But you know what? In this world, all kinds of players, all kinds of games, and I'm excited to bring our respective wisdoms to bear.
Yeah, this is good. We're going to be a good team here.
Just like American Idol, you need to text in to the Games and Feelings chat. Text 50551 if you agree with Amanda, and 50552 if you agree with Jasper.
But Eric, what number do I text to vote for Clay Aiken?
That is 50553.
Okay, great.
And Ruben stuttered 50554. Yeah, that's right. I know both of them. That's why I'm hosting this thing. I know both of the people who are competing. Oh my gosh. I think, I agree with Jasper. I think it's really funny when you go into a tabletop RPG game with someone who is very, very video game focused and they care about the loot. I have never played a game where like you need to keep track of loot. Like enemies dropping stuff in a tabletop RPG. Like imagine like you kill like a monster and then it's like, well, I would love to harvest their eyes, ears, skin, and teeth. I'm like, are we gonna do this every single time you fight something? Are you gonna?
Because you need to get good at nature checks or survival or something because you've got to carve this thing up and that's a whole thing. And yeah, I agree.
It's like, do you think that this person is going to drop the weapon they're going to use on you? Probably not. No, I make that for fun, and I don't want you to have it.
Yes, absolutely, completely agreed. But I think I've got some. Hopefully I've got some tips where I'm like to help you get out of that mindset when playing a game like this, because I definitely think that for TTRPGs it's super difficult. I think to bring in that kind of mentality because you will just go wild. Like I'm so bad at tracking inventories in games where like it's all handled for me. You know, like I'm playing No Man's Sky at the moment, and like even in that I'm like, okay, so sodium becomes the thing, and then I put the sodium in the thing, and then I take something out, but then I need to go to which planet where do I get the? And already my mind is hurting. You know what I mean? Skyrim was too much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, how do I attach my sword? How have I attached my sword to my feet? This doesn't work. What's going on here? So for me, having to do that with pen and paper, or even on D&D Beyond or whatever, it's like, well, this is too much. This is too much. Yeah. So I'm very items light.
I have definitely crossed into that with board games. Like, you're too invested in a board game as if you have an app that is going to do the adding for you. Yeah. I ran into that with Sentinels of the Multiverse, which is like a big superhero thing where you have superheroes and the villain and the environment. But of course, you need to like keep track of all of that by hand. But then there's an app. There was a video game version of the board game, and it's like I've crossed too far. Like I will. I am too invested. I would also used to play like 3 heroes. Like I wouldn't. It's supposed to be each player gets 1 hero, but like sometimes you could just play by yourself, and I would play 3 heroes, and I would keep track of everyone's math. And I'm like, I've gone too far. I need to make some friends. I have to teach them this board game instead of just running it by myself. Incredible. All right, do we want to get into our first question?
Yes.
Oh, please.
Well, I've served this up on a little platter here. This one's perfect for Jasper. I'm going to give the name that people have given me permission for, but because this is an advice show, I have come up with little fun like phrases that are attached to them.
Excellent.
Because that is my right as the person who's put this together, that I get to make a little joke about the question that you are all asking here. So we're going to start with a question from Hannah. How do I not get embarrassed while playing a character? I think this is for playing a character in tabletop RPGs. And this is coming from role playing, I'm saying, pretty hard.
Oh, very good. Okay, my big tip, I think, for role playing, I think the main thing I always think is that you've got to take it in stages. You've got to realize that you can't jump in and be like Laura Bailey or something, right? Like you're not gonna dive in and immediately be like some all action role playing person and remember all of the stuff that all the abilities you can use, and because you've got to find your own style, your own flavor, right? You've got to find out where's the happy medium for you, and how much you like to narrate versus how much you like to be in character, for instance. That's a really big kind of trade, and it will usually be for some people it'll be straight 50-50, some people it leans more one way than the other way. It's a very personal thing, it's a very, very personal thing to not feel overwhelmed or embarrassed. And so I think my initial advice for you would be start off with more of a narration-based character, because I still think that's a very valid form of role-playing, and then see if you can move to, more kind of in-character stuff. So describe what your character does, and just see a kind of, if you can sort of challenge yourself to be just see if you can think from their perspective. If you're even slightly thinking from your character's perspective instead of your own, then you're role-playing. You're doing a great job. And then I think that you'll find that naturally, when you realize that you're in a safe environment, you're with great people, I think naturally you'll start to feel a little bit more comfortable as you go. And then maybe occasionally a line will slip out. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I just said a line in character. What? Okay, that's kind of fun. That's kind of cool. Okay, maybe I'll do that again. And hopefully it'll start to progress like that. Now, all of this with the big caveat, and probably the biggest piece of advice is, if you are at a table where you don't feel comfortable, maybe that's worth exploring a little bit. You know what I mean? Just if someone's making you feel embarrassed in particular, whether it be the DM or another player or something, then I think that's definitely something that needs to be acknowledged first for you. But if you're at a table where you're with some friends and everyone's very comfortable and they're all role playing and you feel okay with how they role play, etc., then I think start to tease out some of that kind of more narrative based description of stuff, and then see if you can get yourself sort of more and more in character. And I think eventually, you'll get yourself to a good place, I think.
Yeah, that is so concrete and helpful. And I wish I had that advice when I was starting out a few years ago.
All right, so we're going to take a second, and Jasper, please get in your time machine.
Yep, I'm going to hop right in here. Amanda, I'll be there in 2 years ago, or whatever it was.
But often embarrassment comes from the fear of kind of being the person doing the most, or not being in on the joke, or not being able to keep up. And so I think for players, if you're able to, observe a session before you start it, or if you're able, even at the table, to ask yourself oh, yeah, that person is describing what they're doing. That person is saying a line in character. That person is, using a voice or saying something that I know they wouldn't do as a person, but that their character is doing. Even just noticing that might make you feel a little more relaxed and safe to be able to say, my character is pissed. My character, grabs it off the table, and put a little bit of flavor into not just, oh, I'm going to, have a drink, but I snatch the mug off the table, and kind of noticing what others are doing, I think might help you to contextualize and feel a little bit safer doing those steps that Jasper is recommending.
Yes. Yeah, that's great.
I definitely want to key in, I think that we touched on this a little bit, about feeling embarrassed, and about that sort of feeling when you're doing a tabletop RPG or you're role playing and you're getting the mindset of the character. The whole point of what we're doing here is for people to have fun. So no one is recording you, and if someone is recording you, tackle them immediately. Like, you're just doing it to have fun. You don't have to role play. And I think that I want to touch on that thing that Jasper said. If there's something happening at the table that makes you feel embarrassed, you should definitely address that.
Yeah.
Like, you should touch on that. If someone's making fun of you when you're doing it, if you feel like the people around you are not people you feel like you can be safe around, just admit that. Maybe they don't know that they're doing that, being like, I feel really silly when I try to do a character voice. And I don't know if you can say, you're doing that, or this is the way that you are acting is making me feel this way, or you're not doing anything, but this is a self-consciousness that I have, and I really want us to all be like really kind about it. I think you should do that. There's usually a responsibility that's being put on the DM or GM to do this. Like, they're like the teacher or like the manager of what's happening here. And if you're willing to do that with everyone else, I think that people will take it better if it comes from you and being like, I'm having this feeling of guilt or embarrassment, and can you like help me with this?
Yeah.
And I think it's about trust as well. Like, trust is a really, really big part of it, because it can feel very personal, I think, TTRPGs particularly, because they usually are like, your character is influenced in some way by you. And so even if you're doing like a 7-foot Goliath or something, like, you know, which might be very removed from who you are, like, there'll still be some personality traits and things which are similar to you. And so trust definitely comes into it. And so I would say, like, just to have a conversation with your DM about introducing some safety tools, because even that will add a layer of trust, right? If you trust that you can, you know, hey, this is an X for me, or this is like something that I don't want to necessarily do, or I don't feel comfortable with, or whatever, it kind of adds that layer of trust. And I think when you have trust, that's when I think you start to feel less and less embarrassed. If you think about hanging around with like your best friend who you can be like your fullest, grossest self in front of, like, that's the kind of where you want to get to with TTRPGs, where you can just be like, I can let everything hang out, and it, like, all of my bad bits and good bits and whatever, and it just doesn't matter. Like, that's what real trust gets you, and you're trying to find like a kind of capture a fraction of that, I think, when you're playing, and that's what removes, I think, embarrassment. And the only other thing I would say as well, it happens to everyone. Like, when I first got to play with the NADPOD crew, I was like, oh, I've got to do a voice. Okay. I was building up to playing my first NPC with a voice. You know what I mean? I put one in right at the top because I was like, I can just get it out of the way, and then I won't feel too embarrassed because of these. I'm playing with these like professionals, and like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's so normal. Like, please do not feel like it's like everyone else is fine and I'm not. It's like, I guarantee you, everyone else, like, the first session of any game, everyone's a little bit embarrassed. Everyone's a little bit like, how far are we all going? It's a bit of a dance, right? It's like, how far are we pushing this? And then someone will come with like a thick Scottish accent. You're like, okay, we're fine. You know, we're all good.
I do want to touch on something really quickly, is that, like, you know, all three of us here do this professionally in that we play this, and like, there is always going to be someone who's like your idol and you want to do this. We still get embarrassed of doing these things. Like, this is what Jasper is playing with the Not Another D&D podcast people who like extremely do this for a living. It's really hard, and everyone is really feeling that. And the other thing is, like, D&D media, tabletop RPG media, has gotten to a thing where like, you forget people were actors first, and like, they were established actors for a very long time, especially as all three of us have come to this as like this first foray into being public performers. So that's a thing.
I trained for 3 years and then have been out working for the last like 6. You know what I mean? Like, to get me to here. So like, there is a reason why I feel comfortable doing pretty much anything in front of anyone, but that is the reason. Like, it is not because I have some sort of innate skill, or it's literally not. It's because I've trained and worked to get here. So don't beat yourself up or compare yourself to anyone, especially not us.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of your classes began with exercises, right? With like getting to know, warming up, you know, doing the thing where you like send the energy across the circle, or like pass an invisible object. Like, there are reasons and tools that people use in these spaces to get comfortable being vulnerable and silly and like, you know, pretending with others in the same place. And when you're starting a campaign, like, I think that's so valuable, Eric, to make a point about, to say it is weird and uncomfortable sometimes. You can walk into a room and, you know, at this point in my life, I might be like, hey guys, what's the vibe? Do we do voices? Do we narrate? Are we in person? Yeah. Like what's the vibe? Like, what are we all going for? And I'm sure throughout the show, we will often talk about how communication, a session 0, setting expectations. Like these are all really useful. But you're allowed just to say like,
Yes.
I am nervous about the idea of role playing. Guys, my goal over the next few, sessions is to like get comfortable being a character, and I'm going to work on that. And like, I just want to put that out there, because naming the thing that you're worried about and not having it be your little secret acorn of shame that you hide in the frozen ground in the wintertime and come back to in spring can, at least for me, take a lot of that pressure off.
We're all squirrels now. I love
We
it.
are. We are.
Jasper, in British acting is when you're like sending the energy, are you just like, here's the energy in it? Is that what you say?
Yeah, we go in it at the end of everything. Yeah.
I must say, I am watching Canadian Big Brother, and maybe reality competition shows are part of this.
This is definitely part of
scope.
this, yeah.
They do say a lot more often than I thought was real.
Wow, yeah, fair. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I've recently moved up to the north of England, and we add that. I've started doing it now. We add that onto the end of everything. So if we were up north playing that same game, it'd be like, "Here's the energy, that," and like, why did you say that at the end? That's weird. It'd be literally like anything. Oh, that's good. That. Like, you've already said that's good. You've already said the whole sentence. You don't need to add that on the end. It's strange.
I think it's great.
Thing.
It's like pointing. It's like, that's great bread, that. And like, I'm like, thank
yes,
you. It is.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's a perfect use. Well done, Amanda. You're officially a northerner now.
Thank you. I'm Irish, which means I'm half northern.
Yeah, sure, fine. I'll let it happen. Sure, half northern from
We're
Ireland.
We're going to just ignore all of the complicated nature of that particular question, and I'm going to follow up by saying, when you go to acting school in Brooklyn, you say, "Here's the energy." What, you think you're better than me? You don't want this energy that I'm giving to you?
Hey, you don't want my energy? What are you doing? What do you mean you don't want my energy?
This is the best energy that you can get. This is the best energy in Brooklyn.
Call your mother. Go fuck yourself.
From the Mark Wahlberg school of that's the Boston school of acting. That's totally different.
Okay.
And I think, I'm sure that Hannah definitely got what she was looking for. But no, I'm sure that all the things that Hannah you're touching on are things we're definitely going to talk about in episodes and in questions to come. But this is a very good place to start. All right, well, let's take a pivot here and let's talk about some video games. Have you heard of them? They're more than just Pac-Man.
Oh.
That was the first question. Is what?
No,
what question?
there is Tetris as well. So obviously there's two. There is two games.
We have a great question here from Isabella Salas, and it's one that I can definitely relate to. How to deal with horror games if you feel paralyzed by the build-up for jump scares? And this question comes from jumping out of my seat and jumping into a game I enjoy more.
I should have led with this as my advice, because me and horror games, we have a very complicated relationship.
Please go off, because I cannot. I can't do it. I absolutely
Well, that's
can't do
exactly it. So I love scary stuff, right? Like, I love it, but it really affects me. You know what I mean? Like, I started watching The Invisible Man on Netflix, the Blumhouse one.
Yeah.
And I remember getting like halfway, well, not even halfway through, like a quarter of the way in, and I went, it's really funny. I've decided to watch this on my own. But the one thing I find more terrifying than anything is not being able to see what's attacking me. I am terrified right now. I am immediately paranoid of everything in this room. Like, I was staring at everything, being like, he could be there, and I wouldn't know. That's interesting. Anyway, all this to say, films are like, they ride the line for me over like how much I can handle, and there's usually like I have coping mechanisms where like I'll on purposely watch it on like my iPad because it somehow seems less threatening than watching it on my TV, or like my big TV with like surround sound and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's something that I do. But video games is like a whole other kettle of fish because I am involved. And so like, I remember even when like Slender Man came out, I was like, oh boy, okay. There was something about being able to actually affect the thing, knowing, if I turn right. And so I think this is what the question is getting at here, is like, if I turn right, there will be jump scare. You know what I mean? I had the Resident Evil VR game.
Oh my God.
I had the Resident Evil VR game, and I've also played the Alien Isolation VR game.
Why? Why would you willingly put that on your eyeballs?
Do you know why? Because honestly, the thrill of like genuinely feeling like I'm being chased down a corridor by an alien was one of the most exhilarating feelings afterwards. Because this is the big key for me, is like, it's the jump scare happens, I scream, and then I'm like, whoa, cool.
I'm still alive.
I'm still alive, yes! Like, that's the thrill for me. And so I think, so to actually answer the question instead of just talk about my own experience with horror games, is that the big thing for me is don't play VR games because I have no advice for that. VR games are just absolutely terrifying. There's nothing you can do to escape it. The alien is behind you, and if you turn around, it's there. If you close your if you turn any which direction, the game is still in front of you, and there's no escaping it. It's horrible. Don't do it. But what I would say is, volume is huge, right? Like any scary thing, if it doesn't have sound, it stops becoming scary quite quickly. And so like genuinely, if you feel like it's getting to a particularly bad point, I have before teed up calming music and just started playing it over the top of the game.
Wow.
And it becomes way less scary. Like and it means you can still proceed with the story and the narrative and the characters and stuff, but it's just like, have some whale song just queued up on Spotify and just hit play when you know that something's about to jump out of the box you have to open. And it makes a big difference for me. I feel like I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, fine. It's fine. And also, the other big thing, I like to min-max the hell out of my characters. Like, if it's that kind of game, if you can do that, where you can get very strong, like, early in the game, because there's nothing better than feeling like you're like Superman, you can easily defeat anything that runs at you. Then you're like, oh, cool. I'm instantly less scared of this thing that's running at me because I know I can destroy it. So like,
just punching through a zombie face.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, this is great. This isn't scary. Like I'm the boss. You can't even get close to me right now. Why would I be scared
I'm
of
the
you?
boss. It's fine. I'm the boss.
It's fine. I'm the boss. It's fine. It's fine. I'm the boss. Oh god, she's 7 foot tall. Ah! Ooh. Yeah, I'm now doing whale noise for my. Yeah, if you want, you can pay me and I will when you're playing a game, I'll be on the phone just singing whale song to you to try and calm you down.
Jasper's on Cameo.
It's a limited service, but I am willing to do it for anyone who needs it.
The creator economy is wild.
You can truly set up a Patreon for anything these days.
It's an OnlyFans, but just for whale sounds for you to use whenever you need it.
Hilarious.
Wow. Just an ASMR for whale sounds.
I'm a huge fan of spoilers if this is a thing that you are worried about. Like, look at playthroughs, read reviews. There are definitely places you can go to like get a summary or ask somebody on Reddit or ask a friend who's played the game in the past. Like, hey, these are my specific things that I specifically am a little bit worried about. Like, would you be my screener? Like, would you tell me if this is a thing I have to worry about? And particularly, like, I am not very dexterous. There are some games that I just can't play because I'm not like skilled at it or want to become skilled at combat specifically. And so instead I'll watch a playthrough of it and I get to enjoy the narrative, but I don't have to do it myself. So I think if this is something that you really want to do for yourself, here are strategies on the table. But if you just want to enjoy the story, you know, you don't have to feel ashamed about, you know, consuming it via a playthrough or a speedrun or a review or other ways.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Can I throw out one more as well real quick? Just playing with a friend. Just like make jokes out of it with a friend. Do you know what I mean? Point out all the dumb glitches and stuff. Again, it really becomes a lot less scary when you're like, oh, look, can you see the little thing glitching through the wall? That's the sort of stuff you won't notice when you're on your own because you'll be so tunnel vision and focused on the terrifying thing that's at the end of the hallway and not like the glitch that's happening that's clearly actually quite hilarious. So yeah, that also helps.
It's wonderful to know that the alien is like halfway through a desk while it's running after you. I honestly am looking for that thing that you're saying, Amanda, because they definitely have that for movies. Like where all the jump scares are, and they're really good about putting those things on websites that talk about everyone's like triggers and stuff like that. But they're not as good about that for video games just because there's so much more that there is to touch.
And they can come at different times, right? Like it's very flexible depending on how you play.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's not one timeline.
So I am looking for something like this. If someone knows that, please let us know. I wish I had more of those things because I also super, super hate horror. I cannot deal with jump scares. I love weird. I love real strange shit, but I cannot deal with a jump scare. I'm like, why would I do this to myself ever? And it actually kept me from playing one of my favorite games, Control, for a very long time. I looked around a lot trying to see if there were jump scares. I Googled, I watched a bunch of like the beginnings of playthroughs to see if people had talked about this. I had asked a bunch of people, and only until someone had like told me definitively that like I also get scared and I loved this. And then I finally played it and then like realized that I was never going to be in a position where I'm going to get jump scared. When I got to a point when I'm like, oh, there are no jump scares in this game, then only then was I able to like really enjoy it, not be worried that it was going to happen. So like I wish there were more resources like this out there because it kept me from this. I would also say don't play horror games. Just you don't have to play Resident Evil.
You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. It's true.
Like you'll get the memes about a big lady from Resident Evil on the internet.
Even I know about Big Lady.
Exactly. Know about Big Lady, and then as soon as you've seen it as meme form, she's got to be a lot. Well, actually, I don't know if she is less scary. I'll be honest. I think if I was playing that game, I'd still be pretty scared. she's so big. Wow.
Jasper has a different relationship with Big Lady than the majority of the internet.
Twitter is saying "Step on me, mommy." Is that not the reaction?
That is like, honestly, I'm like, no, why? What, that would hurt my neck. Her boot would probably go through my neck. And then
it's like, what are you
soft,
talking
squidgy
about?
human. She's a 7 foot, 8 foot vampire or whatever, 12 foot, I think. She's huge, you know. She probably has boots on.
And she has a glove that turns into Wolverine. I don't want that.
Yeah, this is so bad. This is so bad. There's so much nope here. Just to round up though, like genuinely, the Alien Isolation VR game, Eric, I can't express to you. I honestly don't know. I think you might actually have like some sort of cardiac arrest because it was on Oculus, right? And it was in a room setup, so I could actually walk.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and the worst part is that it gives you the boop, 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 like on the radar thing. And I genuinely remember getting to a point where my hands were shaking and I was sweating like you would not believe. And then I had to walk into a room and one of the guys was like, just so you know, I'm turning your mic on, so you need to stay quiet. And then everyone just went dead quiet. And basically what happened is they have a mic in the headset. Because this, for a context for anyone who's like wondering where this game is, I don't actually know if it's available. I used to live in the town where they made Alien Isolation, the video game. It was in a really small town in Horsham. I have no idea why there, but it was. And they... Basically, Sega told them originally that they were going to have like full funding for a VR game, and then they kind of pulled it. And so I don't actually know what ended up happening to the VR game, but we got to play it because we worked in the game store nearby. And anyway, so that's the whole backstory as to that.
The game itself, it's worth saying because this also existed before VR. The game is you need to go around the ship from the movie Alien and not get killed by the alien. Like that's the entire game.
Fun for some, not for me.
But then, so the mic is on, picking you up. And I think it gave you some sort of feedback where kind of like on a normal mic where you can hear yourself a little bit. And I remember becoming so, like the room was so quiet, I could hear my breathing and I was hid in a locker looking through like strips of like the locker, the thing. And I could hear like, and it was like, I was literally like trying to cover my own mouth as I could... Boop. And like honestly, I genuinely don't think I've ever been so singularly scared for my life as I was in that moment. But what was amazing is I genuinely never thought I could take it off. Like it just didn't like register to me that I could just lift this thing off my head and I'd be out. Because it was so all-encompassing. It was wild.
Right.
I mean, it's designed to be immersive, right? And to your point, environment matters a lot. So if you want to play these games in a brightly lit room with your back against a wall, snuggled up in blankets, with your dog on your lap, you know, like if that's what makes you feel good. I watched Invisible Man on silent because at 1.5 speed because I was so scared, but I needed to review it for a podcast. So, you know, pay attention to your own environment. You can also use the same tools that the games use to scare you to unscare yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for turning that point into something useful for the listeners, Amanda. I really appreciate that.
And also the same tricks you might know from knowing horror movies, you might be able to apply sound. I mean, also, you know, like the sound of the fucking violin.
Yeah.
They put that in games too. And if you're really lucky, you can turn your camera around and you can see like the monster that's hiding around the corner. You're like, you're gonna fucking jump out. I'm gonna see you.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Isabella. That was a great question. We're gonna do another question, and this one we're gonna step out of our chairs and we're gonna go IRL in terms of games. We're gonna talk about escape rooms. All right. I know that it might be a while since we've done an escape room. Jasper, you love escape rooms?
Me and Jade got on the leaderboard The two of us got on a leaderboard. We were second fastest in an escape room in Manchester. It was a samurai-themed room. We
Wow.
aced it, and the guy came out and was like, have you done this before? And we were like, nah, we're just good. And they were like, you beat 2 professional teams. We were like, oh, snap. Okay, maybe we just got lucky.
I love the idea that this guy was like, oh, this person came back because he wanted to get on the score.
Yeah, get on the leaderboard, right? He genuinely thought, because we got out in like 25 minutes or something ridiculous. And he was just like, oh, well, sorry. Like, you paid for an hour, but you're out. So you can walk around in there for a bit, I guess.
Look at how cool this sword is, if you'd like.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, so I'm ready for this. Let's go.
Incredible. Amanda, how do you feel about escape rooms?
Never been to an escape room. Have almost no desire to do one. So I would love to
Yeah.
spectate as you and Jasper and Jay do one. That sounds really fun. But
I'm coming to NYC, Eric. Let's do
Yeah.
this.
I would
We have
love
to do
that.
this.
There's an escape room in the building the Multitude Studio is in.
And you haven't done it?
Well, there was a
Wild.
global pandemic.
There was.
Yes,
There
that
was.
was the
Oh,
thing. You
yeah.
remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's still happening, I've heard. But there's also World War III, so I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
It's all different. I really want to go to that escape room place, but again, we didn't realize it until like March 3rd, 2020, and then we just never got the chance to do it, but hopefully soon.
I will just say that the idea of my friends relying on me to like solve a puzzle that means we can or cannot like win a game sounds like my actual worst nightmare. So it doesn't sound super fun to me, but like I'm here for it. I get that it's fun for others. So maybe we'll have a balanced perspective here on how to advise this question asker.
For sure. All right, so we don't have a name here, so I get to lead with the fun phrase that I've put together. Escape this awkward situation wants to know. I'm going on a 3rd date to an escape room. I've never done one, but my date is very into them and wants to show me their favorite place. What should I look out for, and how do I make this a good date?
I think you have to ask, what's the vibe? What's the vibe? Do we need to
Because
win?
if you don't take this seriously enough, day over already. Like, if they're into
Sure.
this, like, and you're like, man, oh, look, there's a thing. Like, they might be into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think like many problems that I'm sure you'll encounter on the show, there's a communication challenge, but it means that it's a thing that communication can solve. So you can say, hey, I'm a little nervous, but I'm down for the ride. Like, tell me what to do. You know, I will be your sous chef. You are the chef of this kitchen. I am here to help. Or you can go in and say like, hey, down to try it. Not really sure. You know, like I'm here for the experience. But I think like lots of dates, it's about, you know, showing up, like being ready to have fun, but also being ready to say when you're not having fun.
I love that. That's good. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think there is a very, very likely potential that your date is going to take this very seriously. So my first tip is absolutely establish how seriously they are going to take this escape room, because I'm genuinely worried about you getting in there. Like, I'm just saying, if this was me, one of the first things I do when I get in an escape room is I walk into the middle and I lie down on the floor to see if there's anything on the underside of stuff that I need to see. Like, I'm just saying that if this was our 3rd date and I rocked up in the escape room and just laid down on the floor and just went like weird crazy eyes across the room, you might be like, what is happening?
But
so
isn't that sort of the best possible thing you can do on like a 3rd, 4th, 5th date? Of be like, let me see
Yeah.
you in your element. Like that could be really awesome.
Yeah. And let me see if you got any weird little ticks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some strange things I need to know about. Like if you go Sherlock Holmes occasionally, for no apparent reason, it'd be good to know that, you know?
Absolutely. I think I need to share a story with the two of you.
Oh yeah.
I went to a bachelor party in Montreal a few years ago. I went for one of my friends from high school. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City. So a lot of the people I knew from high school, and they were still around. They still lived in New York City, but a lot of them like lived in Manhattan and had like office jobs. And I don't mean that derogatorily. I mean the fact that like the three of us all work at creative jobs, you know?
Yeah.
And like that's part of the thing. But they like, you know, moved numbers around and filed reports and things and
Real
working
jobs,
insurance. Yeah, real jobs.
Yeah.
So like felt like I was kind of like the Brooklyn-y person, that like I did creative stuff and I lived in Brooklyn and people thought that was weird and whatever. So we had went on this bachelor party. While I was there, it was like trying to keep up and we were having fun, but I still felt like the thing that I was doing was a little weird. And then we went to an escape room, and the escape room was like T-Rex Jurassic Park themed. And I went in there and I felt like all of my energy of like being the felt like a little bit like the odd person out was fucking focused into this. Like, my twin brother was there too, and like people who I had known since I was like 10, but I'm just like, yeah, that's how do you not know that was fucking Morse code? If something is barking or making a noise, it's always Morse code. How do you know that? And I went around and we'd split up, and I went around and solved each person's thing as we were going through with it, and it was just like I got so intense about it. But I think I was just like in a position where this all came out. So I think if someone is doing this as their date, they're doing it because they know how to keep their. If I would not go to
would you do
one,
that?
not as a date. I would not do this. But I feel like if this person is going on an escape room with you, if this is someone you're going to continue to date, then they know that they're going to keep their cool, even if they're doing weird shit like you said, Jasper. That's not like people get really intense about escape rooms, but it seems like that's not what we're saying here.
I think the question you need to ask this person before you go on the date is, are you prepared to lose? Are you prepared to get stuck in the escape room? And if they look you dead in the eye and say, no, then I don't recommend going on this date. Like, I think you should find something else to do. Because if they are not prepared, if their whole evening will be ruined because you did not escape the room, because you need two people.
Yeah.
Who, you know what I mean? And it's not the easiest thing in the world when it's the first time. You need two people. So I'd say if that's the kind of vibe you get, if you get like Eric Silver levels of like, I am not prepared for us to lose, and I will show you why and how I can do this, it might get a little intense. But I think to answer the question about what you should be looking out for and stuff is just generally thinking outside the box is always useful. Yeah. Very useful thing. If you used it once, you don't need to use it again. So just drop it and move on. That's a big one. Or at least ask the person before you go in the room. Just say, hey, is there any like repeat keys kind of thing, right? Like if I pick up a key and I use it for a box, will I ever need to use that key again? Because most of the time they'll give you that information and they'll just be like, no. So that's a good one, because then you can move on, and you know that if you've done a thing with a thing, you can move on, because that's like first mistake of escape rooms is people focus on like one thing after they've used it, because like, oh, there must be something else to this. We didn't figure everything out. It's like, yeah, you probably did. And then the other one is just like, a bit like Eric said, any patterns at all, there is something to do, like there's something to do with it. Like if there is any repetition of a pattern, dots, cups, anything like that are all like in a row or something, absolutely you need to do stuff. And then the third tip is, not everything will be automated in the room. So like some things will be cued based on the guy outside watching you. And so therefore, if it doesn't look like a mechanical switch or a lock or something, that doesn't mean that it's not to do with something. If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I've done stuff before where it's like, oh, we have to put a chair in a certain place, but we didn't think about it because we were like, how could that possibly like trigger anything? You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's purely because the dude outside is like, oh, they put the chair in the place that they needed to go, and so now I'll trigger the next thing to happen. Nice. So that's like something that, because you can get a bit confused, right? Because I mean, if you've been in the Merrick, like like a lot of stuff is like magnets and switches and stuff like that happens very automatically, so you can kind of get into a bit of tunnel vision. So broaden out and just be like, and when in doubt, just move stuff around. Honestly, the amount of puzzles I've solved by just being like, beep, 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 up, hey, don't know what that was, but I figured it out, so it's all good.
Yeah. I think the main thing for me, Jasper, those are great tips. The thing that I think you're putting all together here, that is something that you need to remember for escape rooms, for tabletop RPGs, for video games. They're made by people. Someone had to make this, and it had to come out of a human brain. So all the things you know about humans and how puzzles are put together, and how, like, think about all of the puzzles in any sort of thing that we've all done in video games, in tabletop RPGs, in escape rooms, that are like, oh, you use water to put out fire. Right? Like that being a solution for things, or like a mirror is the solution. Like those are the shared human experiences. Always remember that a person put this together, and that if it doesn't make sense, it needs to make sense to people for you to solve the puzzle.
I went to an overpriced spy museum in Washington, D.C. when I was a child. I retained some things.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, just to jump on that, is like, I guarantee you there'll be a situation in which you know something your date doesn't, and it will probably be the most satisfying moment of your relationship thus far. So enjoy and savor that moment when you correct them or do something that they didn't see, because they're like, oh, I know escape rooms, I know what this is, and you'll think of something outside the box, and it'll be incredibly rewarding.
Very good.
The other thing, because I'll be annoyed at myself later if I don't say this, is just check out the theme. there'll be a theme for this thing. So there's usually like, I did an Alice in Wonderland one, and we figured out like halfway through, we're like, oh, this is kind of like going through like the books.
Yeah.
So it kind of like gave you an idea of like what thing we had to go to next. So even stuff like that, it's kind of useful.
No, that's what I'm saying about a human put this together. Like, they wouldn't do the book out of order. Like,
Right.
that's not how
Yes.
human brains work, right? It's not like, oh, well, the caterpillar is first. Like, no, that would never happen. You need to go down the hole first, and that's how
Yes.
that thing puts together.
Precisely.
Absolutely.
Precisely that. Yeah.
Which is why I always feel fine of looking up solutions when I'm playing video games like Control, God of War, etc. Where I'm like, either I'm not getting the thing you put in your video game to cue me on this, or you did a bad job of showing dumb people like me how to put this puzzle together. So that I'm just like, human error, you know, like it's not always going to work for all brains. So that's why I always feel okay to look up stuff in RPGs, especially.
Absolutely. But enjoy the escape room because they're dope, and I absolutely love them.
We'll have to add this to the itinerary.
Yes.
That'll be great. And Jasper and I will go on a date to this escape
Yeah.
room. We'll both
Yeah,
be
while
very
you
intense
watch.
about this.
I'll take notes. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I know my limits. Like I know it's fun for me. I know it's not. But I love a themed party. I love set decoration. I'd love to just go and look.
I think that's why me and my fiance enjoy them. It's just like, it feels like a themed party. Like, it's
Yeah.
such a fun, just like evening out to just go and do something. Like, go and be in the Wild West for like an hour. You know what I mean? And that's fun. It's also very fun for us that we take it so incredibly seriously that like, I genuinely think people must think that we aren't actually together or something because we don't talk. Unless we have to communicate for the game, we are like in focus mode. Like you would not think there is any love between us because we have like the coldest, most functional relationship. As soon as that door is locked, we are like, we're getting out of here. Okay, cool, let's go.
Yeah, but I'm
Like,
sure afterward, like you go to dinner or whatever, you go home and you're like, hell yeah, dude. Like, you know, that's,
that was
that's what
so
you're
sick.
there for.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the reason why people think that is because you two show up in different cars and shake hands before you walk in.
That's true.
We have briefcases. We come in. We place our oversized coats. We hang them up. We smoke a cigarette before we go in, like sleuth style.
Grinds out on your shoe.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we go, another day on the job every time.
Is this the plot of the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie movie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? I feel like
Yes.
that's what it is.
Yes, it's actually based on mine and Jade's life. You're welcome. We gave you Brangelina, everyone.
Thank you, Jasper and Jade. Really appreciate that.
You're
You've done something for pop culture across the English-speaking world. Very much appreciate that. All right, well, we're going to go to our final segment here on Games and Feelings, where we're not going to help the questions for regular people. We're going to look deep into the internet and see if there's a question that we can help people about games. So I have scoured the internet for a question for us to answer, and we're just going to have to try and help real hard, okay?
Yes.
This is from Quora. This is a question that I got from the gaming vertical of Quora. You know that the internet equivalent of looking into a well and hoping that someone can help me whenever at the bottom of that
and
well.
someone answering from the bottom of the well and being like, whoa.
I need your fingernails before I can tell you about which key you're going to need.
And I can guarantee you by the time you said fingernail, I was already sprinting away.
Like, take off the headset.
This is a question that I pulled. All right. Is it rude to play video games and say pew, pew, pew at someone's funeral?
Is there more?
No, that is the whole question. Is it rude to play video games and say pew, pew, pew at someone's funeral? I have some answers that other people have given. This is from Mikkel, who said, depends on whom we're burying. If it was my funeral, I'd think it was goddamn hilarious. I mean, I'd be dead, so I wouldn't know, but you know what I mean.
Kel taking a stance on the afterlife, actually, here in Quora.
Yeah. So is this, just so I get this right in my head, is this like someone is effectively like on their Switch at the funeral going pew, 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 pew in the back row kind of thing?
Yeah, I assume that like they have a rigged up Switch that has Star Fox 64 on it, and they're playing and they're going pew, pew, pew while they're there.
Cool.
Okay, I was thinking like, is this a scenario where the like, you know, in the wake or like, you know, during the services, it's like on a blow up screen and someone is doing it like in lieu of a reading.
Oh, in which case, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Everyone should be pewing.
Yeah, I actually agree. Like, is it, you know, sort of against the mood to have some audience participation of saying pew as we kill enemies? I think it totally depends depends on who you're burying. I think if the person requested that or would find it funny, or they're of the sort of like my funeral is a celebration of my life type situation, like that sounds awesome.
I can't imagine a scenario in which I would invite people to play a video game at my funeral and then not be okay with them saying pew 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 while they play it. Like that seems like a weird place to draw the line. Like I'll be honest.
I feel I have a hard line on vocalization while you're playing a video game at my funeral.
Yeah.
You must sob and cry the whole time as you play this video game. As you play Mario Party at my funeral, you must sob uncontrollably the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, if no one's calling each other bad names involving each other's mothers when playing Mario Kart, is it really Mario Kart?
No.
So like, therefore, I think it's just that just means you're having a good time, and like you know, a funeral is an event. I want people to have a good time.
Do you know, this has given me a great idea though.
Yeah.
I generally think what I would have to do is like you'd hook up Mario Kart, right? And then I would be like, the one request I would have is that no one plays as Yoshi because that's my character. And we have to like retire Yoshi, right?
Yeah.
But then what I would do is I would get like some badass like nephew or something of mine to secretly play as Yoshi, and then have him be like confused, walk over to my casket, open it up, and pull out a controller that's like on.
That's really good. That's really good, Jasper.
After Yoshi has won the race, of course.
That's really good.
That's beautiful.
That, pew, pew, pew. You know what I'm saying? That's fun. That's fun.
That's beautiful.
Like,
incredible. There's another response here from Matthew, which is wild that you put your full name. I'm going to choose not to say your full name. That's
really
fine
wild.
if you want to dox yourself on Quora. I can't stop you. Just depends on the funeral. There's no punctuation here. I'm so sorry.
That's right.
Just depends on the funeral. If it's someone you generally feel down for, last thing you'd want to do is play games.
Sure.
If it's some jackass you never liked to begin with, pew pew away. So it feels like if you're trying to be disrespectful by playing your Game Boy and quietly going pew pew to yourself during the funeral for like an uncle you hated.
Oh, see, I think it's the opposite. I
Yes,
think if it's
I agree.
If
I
it's
agree.
a buddy and you played it together and that would be meaningful for you, then do it. Just don't do it in a way that disrupts others, right? Because like it's a space of communal sort of like dealing.
I do question how undistracting pew 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 will ever be. Like no matter how quiet you are, if you're like pew pew pew.
I mean, if it were, I'd probably do it like in my car, in the parking lot or like outside while sort of taking a breath. Like others might not understand the significance to me, or like if you go up to like have a private moment, and then you just kind of pull out your Game Boy out of your pocket and just like do a quick thing. But yeah, I think this is a thing that you do if it is meaningful for you and the deceased. It's not a thing that I suggest doing. Certainly, as a kid, I was dragged to lots of wakes. I didn't know who the hell died, and I was just kind of like waiting around and like occasionally eating like stale crackers if there were any. That's not a situation where I think you want to pull out the Game Boy.
Yeah. I think I'd be generally pretty judgmental of like someone who just rocked up at like a family member of mine and was just sat there going pew pew in the background. I'd be like, "Excuse me, Sarah, you need to leave." You just need to leave right now.
I appreciate that the person who asked this really wanted to jokerify someone's funeral by going pew pew pew, but we're like, yeah, no, honor my memory by going pew 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 and doing an any% speed run of Star Fox 64 on a big screen at my funeral, please.
You have to speed run my favorite game, and no one is allowed to leave the funeral until the speed run is complete. So that's all I want. No readings, just a speed run of Fallout New Vegas. Okay, that's all I want. That's
oh my
it.
God.
Pretty incredible.
That's so funny. Oh, wonderful. Well, we're hitting the post game here of this episode of Games and Feelings. Thank you so much for both of you being here. Is there anything either of you would like to plug? Where can we find you when I'm not making you do advice about games?
Hey, I'm Jasper William Cartwright. You can find me on Twitter at JW_Cartwright. And I do another podcast. I do a podcast called Three Black Halflings, which
that show
is...
That show sounds bad. Can you give some context to it?
It's pretty bad. We just do advice on TTRPGs, Dungeons and Dragons, and we talk a lot about our perspective as three black people, hence the name Three Black Halflings, in kind of fantasy spaces, and just like what's that's like. And we talk to other people of color and some white folks. We have the amazing Eric Silver on an upcoming episode.
Stop. Those were the bad episodes I was referring to.
yeah, yeah. It's real bad. We're really questioning whether we should release it. We've got a 5-minute supercut, which is full of the unproblematic stuff that Eric said, but the other 55 minutes is. Yikes, it's bad. No, I'm fully joking. We've got some really amazing people on there. And yeah, it's super fun. If you want to find that, it's just type 3 Black Halflings into the search bar of wherever you're listening to this. Also on Twitter at 3, that's the number 3 Black Halflings. So check us out.
Yay. It's a fabulous show. I love it so much. Every time someone in the Join the Party Discord is like, oh, I'm getting into 3 Black Halflings, like it's every other week or so. I'm just like, yay.
Yes.
Welcome.
I am at She's So Mickey on social, primarily Instagram and Twitter. I co-host 2 podcasts. I co-host Join the Party with Eric, where I played first a rogue and then a monk. And we're doing all kinds of fun things right now over there. And the show Spirits, which is a queer feminist dive into mythology and folklore, where we have a new drink and talk about a new story from somewhere around the world every week.
Amazing.
And I here as your puzzle master. I'm gonna come up with
Question Keeper. I think you said Question Keeper before, but
Puzzle Master, Question Keeper. I'll keep adding into it. It's like
Puzzle
I'm getting
Keeper.
Yeah.
It's
you're the button guy outside the escape room.
I'm waiting for you guys to put the chair in the right place, and then I'll hit the button.
Sure. I've been trying this whole episode, and I'm not getting it right.
You gotta lay down. Gotta look at the button.
Jasper,
I gotta lay down, look up.
Yeah,
I gotta lay down,
yeah.
look up.
Yeah.
Jasper, there's a key under your chair right now. You didn't look at it.
That would be honestly the most wild thing I ever experienced in my life. If you manage to put a key under my chair right now, I'm actually genuinely paranoid, and I know for a fact I'm going to check as soon as we hang up the call. And I need you to know that you've done this to me, and I'm not okay with it.
That's fine with it.
Play your whale songs. Get your blanket.
I
It's
swear,
gonna be okay.
if I find a key, man, you have no idea how much I'm going to mess with you when I come to New York.
That's fine. You can follow me on Twitter at L_Silvero. That's where I tweet about games and stuff. EL_SALVERO. My name if I was a Lucha Libre wrestler. And you can check out the show at Games N Feelings. Games, the letter N, feelings like linens and things.
Yes.
It was too long to actually put N, so we had to just do the N. The best place to submit questions is to go to our website, gamesandfeelings.com/questions, and you can support the show at patreon.com/gamesandfeelings. Find those links in the episode description. Thank you so much to our advice givers.
Woo!
And remember, the instruction manual doesn't have anything to say about feelings.